So my name is Talat Yaqoob. I'm a campaigner, a consultant, a researcher. Sometimes I pop up doing media commentary, and I do a variety of different things, all of which I'm really privileged to do. But at the focus of all of it is, how do you make Scotland and society in general, including globally, fairer for women and girls, and in particular, marginalised women and girls. So women of colour, migrant women, women from minoritized religions, including Muslim women. How do we make a space that doesn't leave them as an afterthought, creates a society where they get to lead if they want? If they don't want to lead, that's okay, but they have enough to live on and a high quality of life and independence and freedom to exist, and joy to exist, and the ability to be able to have a life that is beyond merely surviving, which I think a lot of women, and particularly women who are furthest away from power, opportunity, from wealth, it's about surviving rather than living, and certainly not getting to the point of joyful living. How do you create a Scotland where that can happen? And we're not thinking about threats that are around us, or inequality that's around us, possibility of the existence of poverty, either we're in it or potential to fall into it. How do we create a fairer, a more equal Scotland where decisions are being made with us in mind, and in fact decisions are being made by us ourselves? So it's quite, I think about how I got here, and so I'm not entirely sure a lot of the time. I've always been, I asked my dad this once. I actually asked Dad, do you think there was something that particularly got me involved in like the political side of things? And he said, I don't know if you've always been political, but you've definitely always been angry. And there's something in that, right? This is really, I've made a career of channeling my anger, channeling my frustration into something, hopefully, that does something positive, although it feels so incremental sometimes. And in the state of what is, I think, an increasingly volatile and hostile world, it feels like a lot of the time we're going backwards. But you do what you can in the face of quite a lot of obstacle, quite a lot of challenge. And sometimes you win, a lot of the times you don't. And then you've got to dust yourself off, find your solidarity and your sisterhood, and you try again. That's been the basis of pretty much everything that I've been doing over quite a few years now. I got into it, well, really because of my experiences growing up. I'm one of 8 daughters, and I think that experience of being a group of women growing up, but also the kind of cultural inequalities and stereotypes that exist that have shaped, I think, a lot of South Asian daughters. The critique of having all daughters and no sons, and that being a narrative and dialogue that was around me and my family a lot, I think that certainly shaped me, that inequality, and the experience of that from effectively birth, which a lot of women have. That certainly shaped me. But then seeing the strength of my mum, seeing the strength of my older sisters, particularly my eldest sister, that's something that has shaped me into knowing that it doesn't have to be this way. And the strength of my dad, who did not take any decision which made me feel like he was doing something because I was a daughter, not a son. Ensuring that we were educated, ensuring that we understood financial independence, ensuring that we felt we could have an opinion. For somebody of his generation to not make that differentiation between daughters and sons absolutely shaped me, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And then I think certainly my feminism and my activism, particularly around the war in Iraq, was heightened when I was at high school. Definitely known for being mouthy about feminist things, even in my teenage years. And then when I went to university, there was politics happening around me. There was people who were interested in politics. There were societies that were about feminism, and suddenly there was this permission to be this person, which I thought was really exciting because that permission hadn't existed so far. I was just angry and aggressive up until somebody said, actually, what you're talking about is feminism. And there was a space to talk about it, space to build sisterhood, space to do something in politics. I was involved in student movement and student politics and doing work around access to education and student debt and fairness for students. And then from that, it's been a career of campaigning, career of trying to influence government, trying to make change, sometimes working in partnership, sometimes having to lobby and push against. And it's a real privilege to be able to get to call that my career. I think it comes with a price, I think. There is a lot of, I think, emotional labor, mental exhaustion, but I would still definitely call it a privilege. And it's even more of a privilege if you get to see some tangible change and you get to have some wins. And I've had the privilege of having some of that, not enough of that, because change is far, far too slow. But we continue onwards because there's actually no other option. The option is to silently condone it. So the only other option is to oppose it and stand up and do something about it. And like I said, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And the thing that I think I've found most beneficial in all of this is the people that are around me, the phenomenal network of women. I have my back and I have theirs. And without that, I probably would have stopped doing this work. How could you carry on if you didn't have? So I am founder of Pass the Mic, which is an organisation now, I guess, but started as an Excel spreadsheet on my laptop. I have fallen into TV and radio and media commentary, which is not something I wanted to do because the idea of actually being in front of a camera, even though I'm doing it right now, but was petrifying to me, absolutely terrible, feel nauseous at the thought of it. But somehow I fell into it. And after a while, I got used to it. And like most things, after a bit of practice, it's not quite as frightening. Although live TV, still frightening. But it's something that can almost be enjoyable depending on the topic and the context and the other people that you're on with, of course. But I found myself being called again and again to do media commentary. And whilst that's welcome, a lot of the time I was being called about things that I wasn't an expert on. And it was because they were looking to check a box on diversity. They knew they had been called out on all white panels or all male panels. And I was being asked if I would want to be part of something and commentate on something that obviously you could just see online that that's not my area of expertise. So I started to keep an Excel spreadsheet of women, and predominantly women of colour, to be able to say, this is the person to go to. This is the conversation to have with that person. And I would see the majority of the time it wasn't followed through, because I would check with that person who was on my spreadsheet. Did they call? Did they get in touch with you? And I realized that actually I'm doing the work that media bodies, media broadcasters and newspapers should be doing themselves. And on top of that, I'm not making the scrutiny of that public. So after I got a phone call and this was in autumn 2019, I got a phone call to come along and talk about, my experience of migration to Scotland. I'm not a migrant to Scotland. I'm born and bred in Edinburgh. And so that notion that this person looks like they tick a box, let's ask them, without any kind of follow through, I found really made me quite angry and frustrated. Like we're just some walking stereotypes that fit into any category that you meet on TV or in a newspaper quote. And so it was at that point that I got in touch with this Excel spreadsheet of phenomenal women that I have that had about 45, 50 women on it. And I asked their permission to make the spreadsheet public so I could share their expertise so that media would use it. And it became a website, and Pass the Mic was born in October 2019. And I asked more women to be part of it. And currently we've got over 200 women who are experts. You've got women who are astrophysicists, environmentalists, economists, medics, public health professionals, academics. You've got unpaid carers. You've got women who want to talk about their migration story. You've got women who want to talk about racism and sexism, want to talk about the menopause, whatever it might be, personal, professional, lived and learned experience, all there. And I'm telling you, it's phenomenal women that are on that list. And since then, we've had more media get in touch, and I've seen them. I'm at the point now where I'll randomly put on news and I see one of them there. And that's what I want to see more of. I want to see it not as, I'm surprised to see it there. I want it to be normalized. I want us to be there for our all different diversities within women of colour, because we are very diverse as a group, but also all of our expertise, the wide range of expertise, and not to be underrepresented and also not to be misrepresented as either victims or threats, to be able to tell our own stories, to be able to change the stories that actually get oxygen and time on our TV, to be able to move us away from the walking stereotypes that we are often seen as in wider society. And since then, we've also had, so 2019 was it launched. It's become more than I thought it would be. It was a directory that was just a website. But since then, we've had a writers cohort. We're on the 4th writers cohort, work with newspapers to pay women for opinion pieces so that they can be showcased as expertise. We've had women who have started working as journalists or started journalism apprenticeships and internships, and are more often asked for their expertise. And there's 60 women who have taken part in that, 60 women of colour, and hopefully another 20 coming soon in the new application process that's just gone out. But the ideal is that that's actually not needed, because they are in media. They are part of the policy and commentary and opinion making and influencing in Scotland without a specific specialist space having to exist. Rather than us having to convince media they were there, I'd rather the space was just a space of solidarity that we could exist in. But right now, it's about tackling underrepresentation and misrepresentation. And it's one of the best parts of the things that I get to do. And to be able to do that, and to be able to pass the mic, and to be able to have more women doing that for others is a huge privilege, but also one that I hope is less and less needed as we make change and we create a Scotland that is delivering for and supportive of women of colour and marginalised women who are often the first in line to be ignored or cast aside. If I can do anything to be able to make a small change in that, I'd say that the work was most definitely worth it.